ito is halos lahat ng nararanasan ng isang tao na experience niya, no? Nagpakita siya ng magandang character as a Christian, no? Kaya ito yung topic na napili ko ngayong gabi. So, how do you respond to temptation, false accusation, and third is ingratitude, no? Yung Bible po natin, kailan handa po natin, hanguin po natin sa lesson ito, Genesis chapter 39 verse 1 to 12, and then Genesis chapter 39 13 to 23, no? The life of Joseph, no? Joseph the dreamer, facing life's problem. Marami siyang, halos lahat na na-experience ng tao, na-experience niya, no? Kung paano siya nagpakita ng napakagandang halimbawa para sa atin. Babasahin ko po, no? Genesis chapter 39 verse 1 to 11. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from Ishmaelites who had taken him there. Verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph. He prospered and he lived in the house of the Egyptian master. When his master saw the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant, no? Sa pagkabili ni Potiphar sa kanya as a slave, ngayon inangat siya as attendant, no? Sa pagiging faithful niya, inangat siya ng Panginoon. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned, no? Bless siya ni Lord, no? Sa kanya pinamahala siguro lahat ng mga negosyo kasi si Potiphar isang mataas na opisyal ng Ehipto nung panahon nila. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of Egyptians because of Joseph, no? Sa analyzing ko, no, si Joseph, no, biniyayaan ng Panginoon, no, ng talino at nagtiwala dahil sa kanyang talino na pamahalaan niya ng husto, ng maayos yung mga ari-arian nitong si Potiphar. So ngayon, lahat ng pagmamay-ari ngayon ni Potiphar pinamahala kay Joseph. So he left in Joseph's care everything he had. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate, no? Now Joseph was well built and handsome. Dito natin makikita, no, matututunan natin mga kapatid sa verse 6, no, ang konsepto ng pagiging healthy, no? Makikita natin, sabi dito, with anything except the food he ate, no? Kaya ang dito sa susunod, now Joseph was well built and handsome. Tama nga yung sinasabi rin ng siyensya na yung exercise, na kung gusto mo pumayat, hindi lang sa exercise kasi 30% or 20% lang kapapayat doon. Ang talagang magpapabago sa iyo ng yung lifestyle mo sa kinakain, no? Kaya dito now Joseph was well built and handsome, no? Kung gusto natin maging handsome, siyempre yung mga kinakain natin dapat healthy, no? Isa-isa nakikita ko dito. And verse 7, and after a while, his master's wife noticed of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. Now then, could I do such wicked things and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, grabe yung pag-entice, no? Day after day. he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day, he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servant was inside. She caught him in his cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her servant's household. So, dito nakikita natin yung persisting temptation, no? Na ginawa ng asawa ni Potiphar kay Joseph. The Joseph's problem is Potiphar's wife casting longing eyes on Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." And then she persisted in tempting Joseph every day, no? Grabe yung temptation, no? Asawa ng high officials, no? Sa tingin ko napakaganda nitong asawa ni Potiphar, no? Di kaila sa atin na ang Egyptian ay mahilig sa mga spices, no? Mga pampaganda, cosmetics. Diyan sila pagdating sa business, pagdating sa mga spice, diyan sila ang ano. So sa tingin ko maganda talaga to yung asawa ni Potiphar. She persisted in tempting Joseph every day. She increased the aggressive nature of her temptation over Joseph. No? Grabe yung temptation. Makikita natin yung response ni Joseph in verse 38, verse 39, verse 8 and 9 sa chapter 39, no? Sinabi niya dito, "How then can I do to this great wickedness and sins against God?" Hindi siya nagdalawang isip. Number 2, hindi siya nagdalawang isip na tanggihan, no? Yung temptation. He did not heed her to lie with her or to be with her. Siguro pagpapasok siya sa room, aalis siya, no? Ayaw niyang makasama tong asawa ni Potiphar. He left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside the house. Chapter 39, verse 11 and verse 12. So the lesson is all of us will face temptation, even Jesus Christ, no? In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. No temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. And God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with temptation will provide the way of escape also, that you may be able to endure it. No? Napakaganda na sinabi ni Apostle Paul dito. It is common to man and God is faithful, who will not allow to be tempted beyond what you are able. Di kanya papabayaan. As long as lumalapit ka sa kanya, no? There are two meaning of temptation in Greek word, no? Number 1 is trial. Number 2 is temptation. Trial comes from God who wants to purify his children. And temptation comes from Satan who wants to seduce people into sinning. Kapag nakakaranas tayo ng trials, diyan na yung pumapasok yung temptation, no? Kung saan tayo vulnerable or mahina, no? Kasi may dinadanas tayo, diyan siya pumapasok. God permits temptation for Christian to strengthen, not for destruction. Minsan inaalaw ng Panginoon yan para mas lumago ang ating pananampalataya, mas lumapit tayo sa Kanya. Satan will try to break Christians, but God is trying to make Christians. Paul assures Christians that with God's help, man can overcome any temptations that he encounters. God has limited Satan, no? Limited lang yung galaw niya, no? So that he cannot force anyone into sin. Tayo pa rin, may free will tayong mamili, no? No Christian can say the temptation was too great to resist because sabi ni Apostle Paul, gagawa at gagawa ang ating Diyos ng daan para tayo ay uh, gagawa siya ng way para tayo ay pumili ng daan natin, no, para hindi tayo matempt, no, just like Joseph, no, ang ginawa niya, tumakbo siya doon sa temptation. And second, we should say no, no, sa mga nag-eentay sa atin, no. In Genesis chapter 4 verse 7, in Tagalog, kung bakit ang ginawa kung mabuti ang ginawa mo, dapat kang magsaya. Kung masama naman, ang kasalanan ay tulad ng mabangis na hayop na laging nag-aabang upang lapain ka. Nais nitong pagharian ka, kaya't kailangan paglabanan mo ito. In Proverbs chapter 1 verse 10, aking anak, sakaling mang-akitin ka ng mga makasalanan, huwag kang papayag, tanggihan mo sila. And third, the lesson is refuse to listen and avoid temptation. Proverbs 5 verse 8. And yan. And 1 Timothy 6:11 and 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 22. But you, man of God, flee from all this and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. Flee the evil desire of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of pure heart. Ito yung payo sa mga youth, payo din sa mga matatanda. Second, babasahin po natin ng chapter 39, 13 to 23. In her hand and ran out of the house, when she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servant. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought us to make sport us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran off the house. She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him his story. That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, this is how your slave treated me. He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, where confined. The Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison. He has made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to any under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in everything he did. No? Ito yung mga na-encounter ni Joseph. Falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. She told the man of her house. Then she told Potiphar. And then Potiphar put Joseph into prison. Joseph's reaction, no longer tempted, no? Satisfied na siya kasi wala na magte-tempt sa kanya. Would have allowed discouragement, hatred, and bitterness to destroy him. Pero the Lord blessed Joseph, implying that Joseph kept a faithful spirit, no? Hindi ka i-bless ni Lord kung hindi ka faithful, no? Sa ganung pinagdadaanan mo na nagtiwala sa iyo yung master mo. Tapos inakusahan ka nung asawa niya at nakulong ka pa, no? The Lord blessed Joseph, implying that Joseph kept a faithful spirit. No? Nanatili siyang faithful sa ating Panginoon. Application, we must keep our lives above reproach. But that will not guarantee our enemies will not falsely accuse us. No? Kahit na gumawa tayo, maging matuwid tayo, may gagawa pa rin upang sirain tayo. No? In 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 16, keeping a clear conscience so that those who speak maliciously against you, your good behavior in Christ, may be ashamed of their slander. And Luke chapter 6 verse 22, Jesus said, look at his disciple. Blessed are those when men hate you, when they excluded you and insult you. Habang sinasabi ni Jesus Christ, so nakatingin siya sa disciples, and then reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man. No? Meron talagang sumisira even kay Jesus Christ, no? May sumisira sa kanya. No? Ganon din sa atin. No? May sisira at sisira sa atin. No? Christians should live a clear conscience, no? To meet with criticism. Para may work out natin na kung may sumisira sa atin, we must educated by the word of God. No? Enemies will constantly watch us to discredit us and accuse us. No? Talagang ang Satan palagi rin nagbabantay yan, no? Na para may sumira. Luke chapter 6 verse 7, Pharisee and the teachers of the law were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus. So they watched him closely to see if he could heal on the Sabbath. When Jesus left there, the Pharisee and the teachers of the law began to oppose him fiercely and began to besiege him with questions, waiting to catch him something he might say. You know? Talagang Pharisee, nag-aabang na para masira si Jesus Christ. Ganon din sa atin, no? Sa ating mga Kristiyano, may ganon, no? Mararanasan natin 'yon, mga kapatid. Sometimes brethren are too quick to believe false accusers without having any evidence. When falsely accused, let us be like Joseph and Jesus Christ. Retain our trust in God. No? Remain faithful to God. Be meek and humble. Ano lang po palagi, mga kapatid. Sometime later, babasahin ko po yung second topic. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them into custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph and attended them after they had been in custody for some time. Each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of the Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's official who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your face so sad today?" Verse 8, "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "It is God who gave the ability to interpret dreams. Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its cluster ripped into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand. This is what it means," Joseph said to him. 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. And you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were in his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh. Get me out of prison. Verse 15, for I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrew. And even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had been favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh. But the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. Sabi ni Joseph, this is what it means. 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang on a tree, and birds will eat away your flesh. Now, the third day was Pharaoh's birthday. He gave a feast for all of his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief breaker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hands. No? So, yung mga dreams ng cupbearer and chief baker, natupad nga, no? Sa interpretation ni Joseph. He hung the chief baker just as Joseph had said to them on his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph and he forgot him. Nakalimutan ng cupbearer na yung paalala ni Joseph na kapag na-restore ka na, no, banggitin mo ako sa Pharaoh. So, pinaikli ko na lang to. When 2 years had passed, 2 years nang nakalipas, no, na naginip uli yung Pharaoh. Ngayon, story nito na naginip yung Pharaoh. Ngayon, so walang maka-interpret ng panaginip ng Pharaoh. Pinatawag niya lahat ng mga magician, no, pero walang maka-interpret. Ngayon, sa verse 9, maaalala ng cupbearer, no? Babasahin ko. Then said, chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servant and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams. He interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And the things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position and the other man was hanged. So ngayon, naalala ng cupbaker, 2 years ba bago naalala ng cupbearer yung si Joseph, no? Na gawa na sabihin, ipakilala siya kay Pharaoh. 2 years pa. No? Joseph is in charge of the butler and chief baker. Each had a dream. Joseph interpreted them, and then the butler was restored to his position, but forgot about Joseph's for 2 years, no? Kalimutan si Joseph. Joseph could have been bitter or disrespond or nagtatampo. Pero hindi niya ginawa yun, no? Hindi natin makikita. 2 years did not make Joseph hostile, ungracious, or ungrateful for his release. It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Application, do not be like butler. We should remember the good that others do for us. No? Always remember kung natin magpasalamat, no? Ma-practice natin magpasalamat kung ano yung mga nagawa ng kapwa sa atin. Maliit man o malaki, no? Pag na-practice natin, even God, no? Dapat palagi tayo magpasalamat pagkagising ng umaga, no? We need to keep a good attitude even if others fail to demonstrate appreciation for our efforts. No? In Colossians 3 verse 23 to 24. Whatever you do, work heartily as the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. You are serving the Lord Christ. Christians should serve with diligence in everything they do. Romans 12 verse 11. As my conclusion, no, how do you respond to temptation, false accusation, ingratitude? Temptation, surrender or overcome? Bitterness or trust in the Lord, in God? Sullen or keep serving God? Be like Joseph. Joseph maintained his purity. He had endured unpleasant circumstances, no? Napakadami niyang pinagdaanan sa buhay na pinagdadaanan din ng tao. Binetray siya ng kapatid niya, ng sarili niyang pamilya, maaaring din mangyari sa atin 'yun, no? Pero nanatili siyang nakita natin yung faithfulness niya, no? Siniraan siya ng asawa ni Potiphar, pero nanatili siya sa kanyang pananampalataya sa ating Panginoon. Showed tremendous faith in the Lord. And blessed siya, no? Blessed immensely ng ating Panginoon. No, after niyang malagpasan ng mga pagsubok na binigay sa kanya. Sana po marami po tayong natutunan sa lesson. Marami pong salamat.